when my fiance, Wesley, casually suggested that his female bestie should be one of my bridesmaids. I didn't even try to hide my grimace. I've read enough of these stories, I said, setting my coffee cup down with a deliberate click. The platonic female friend always ends up sliding into the wife's slot. The actual fiancé gets cast as the villainous third. Well, honestly, maybe we should just call the wedding off. Wesley panicked, instantly reaching across the table to squeeze my hands. Gwen, baby, don't talk like that. You're overthinking it. Roxy is basically a guy. She's loud, she's crass. She drinks beer out of the can. We're just brothers, pure camaraderie. I nodded slowly, pulling out my phone and opening TikTok, just to make sure she isn't using the bro card to slowly chip away at our boundary lines. Need a crash course in pick-me girls and their endless playbooks? Here's a playlist of 100 videos documenting their classic moves. Once you watch them all, we can talk about setting a date. 100 videos. Later, Wesley sat there thinking, in sheer disbelief at the calculated maneuvers of the modern pick-me. Okay, some of these are wild, but it's all just coincidences. Gwen, Roxy would never do stuff like this. I didn't argue. Instead, I slid a pre-printed piece of paper across the counter grate. Then you won't mind signing this pick-me liability agreement. What's this? He muttered, scanning the page. A penalty clause, I said smoothly. Every time she pulls one of these classic stunts, you owe me sharing a water bottle or cup. 10 grand. Falsely accusing me of something. 20 grand. And if she ever pulls some dramatic stunt that results in me being pressured to donate blood or organs to her, you sign over the deed of our new house to me entirely. Wesley looked at the terms, shaking his head with a patronizing laugh. Fine, I'll sign, but you're wasting your time, Gwen. Roxy isn't like this. You won't see a single dime. The universe, however, loves a good irony. It didn't take long for reality to slap him across the face. Wes, holy crap, I'm dying out here. Give me some water. Roxy burst through our front door without knocking, drenched in sweat and wearing an oversized men's basketball jersey. She didn't care about personal space, let alone manners. There was a brand new, unopened bottle of water sitting right on the kitchen island. Naturally, she ignored it. Instead, she grabbed Wesley's half-empty tumbler, threw her head back, and chugged. "Ah, much better," she sighed, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. "I swear, Wes, water just tastes sweeter out of your cup." My eyebrows shot up. Before I could say a word, Wesley jumped in defensively. "Gwen, don't start. That's just how Roxy is. If we make a big deal out of a little water, we'll just look petty and insecure." I didn't waste my breath arguing. I unlocked my phone, clicked play on a video, and slid it directly under his nose. On screen, an influencer was explaining Rule No. 3 of the Pick Me Girl: indirect kissing disguised as sharing. She will always prefer his cup over her own. The defense of lecture Wesley had prepared died in his throat. He cleared his throat, face turning a brilliant shade of crimson. "A Roxy," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe don't do that. It's, kind of unsanitary." Roxy froze, her jaw dropping. She clearly hadn't expected her fiercely loyal bro to take my side. "Wes, are you serious right now? You think I'm dirty?" Her eyes welled with instant theatrical tears. "We literally shared popsicles when we were kids. Now that you've got a fancy fiancé, I'm suddenly an outsider. Is that it?" She slammed the tumbler onto the coffee table with a loud thud and spun on her heel. I tapped the screen again, loading the next video. Rule No. 4. The strategic exit. She will storm off to play the victim and make him chase her. Roxy's back stiffened for a fraction of a second. Then, letting out a dramatic sob, she fled out the door and into the humid night. "Roxy, wait, don't do anything stupid." Right on cue, Wesley bolted upright from the sofa. But before he crossed the threshold, he couldn't resist throwing a glare back at me. "Gwen, she's just simple-minded and blunt. Can't you be the bigger person for once?" I stared at him, genuinely amused by his sheer lack of logic. "She's the one who engaged in indirect kissing, slammed my cup, and threw a tantrum in my house. How exactly am I the one lacking grace here?" Wesley cut me off without thinking. "She did that because she considers you family. You're the future wife here. Gwen, you need to show her some grace and tolerance." "So, what you're saying is, I should sit here and smile while the two of you swap saliva right in front of me?" Wesley exhaled a heavy, exasperated sigh. "Just apologize to her. Okay, here. And out. If she gets hurt out there tonight, it's on us." Demanding the victim apologize to the instigator is a classic trope for the spineless male lead in cheap soap operas, I remarked coolly. Wesley's face went rigid. He didn't dare utter another word. I opened my bank app, pulled up my QR code, and held it out to him. "Rule 1 of our agreement: sharing a drink that'll be $10,000 pay up." Sweetie, apparently Wesley found Roxy at some dingy dive bar downtown. She was completely wasted, draped all over a group of shady-looking guys. When Wesley finally hauled her back to our place on his back, he was still kicking and screaming, "Let me go, I don't want to be here. Gwen hates me, she thinks I'm a scheming bitch, oh god." Wesley's heart clearly bled for her. He gently wiped her tear-stained face as if she were made of fragile porcelain. "Roxy, stop, nobody hates you, you're just too honest for your own good. People misinterpret it. He could no matter who I marry. You will always be my best friend, nobody can ever replace you." Roxy squinted up at him through her drunken haze, wrapping her arms tightly around his neck. "Pinky promise, if you lie, you're a dog." I watched the entire display with detached amusement. The internet forums weren't lying. When confronted with a friendship that has zero boundaries, fiance's dignity is treated like scrap paper. Thank God I had mentally checked out early on. If I actually loved him, this would have broken me. Wesley noticed my cold, observant gaze, and his face instantly darkened. "Roxy is practically alcohol poisoned, and you're just standing there like a statue. Do you have a single shred of empathy?" When I shrugged, "What do you want me to do? Just go wring out a warm washcloth so I can clean her up?" Getting a washcloth? Simple enough. I went to the linen closet, selected a thick, plush white towel, folded it neatly, and brought it back. Roxy was half squinting as her hand reached for the towel. Wesley turned his back to grab a glass of water. In that split second, she looked directly at me and raised an eyebrow in a silent, mocking challenge. "Ah yes." Episode 12 of the Pick Me Playbook. The Martyr's Trap. I remained entirely still, eager to see just how far she was willing to go to hurt herself. Roxy took the folded towel. I watched her fingers slip deftly into the inner folds for a split second before she pressed the steaming cloth flat against her face and dragged it down hard. The white towel tumbled to the hardwood floor. Rolling out from the fabric were two silver sewing needles, gleaming under the vanity lights. My face west. "What did Gwen put in this towel?" she shrieked, clutching her cheek. Wesley didn't even pause to think. He spun around and shoved me out of the way. "Gwen, are you insane? You hit needles in the washcloth." Caught off guard, I stumbled backward, the sharp corner of our wooden sideboard slamming hard into my lower back. A sharp gasp of pain escaped my lips. "Gwen, I am so incredibly disappointed in you. Are you really so threatened by Roxy that you'd resort to disfiguring her?" Gritting my teeth against the throbbing pain in my back, I pulled out my phone once more. "Attention viewers, the TikTok creator's cheerful voice echoed through the bedroom. When a toxic friend feels her grip slipping, she will resort to extreme self-sabotage. Watch out for needles or razor blades planted in towels or cosmetics to frame the partner." The actress on screen was executing the exact same hand gestures Roxy had just pulled off. "Did you forget the videos already, Wesley, or is that brain of yours purely decorative?" The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Wesley's righteous fury instantly evaporated. He awkwardly shuffled out of the room, mumblings about finding a band-aid. He didn't even glance at my lower back, which was already bruising, let alone ask if I was okay. Once Wesley finished patching up his bro and calming her down, my phone buzzed. A banking notification popped up. "Wesley sent you $20,000. Excellent day one." And I was already up 30 grand. Driven by a deep sense of guilt, Wesley was on his absolute best behavior over the next few days, catering to my every whim. Roxy, too, seemed to have undergone a sudden personality transplant. Suddenly, she was all smiles, bringing me bowls of sliced fruit and pouring my tea with sickeningly sweet devotion. "Here you go, Gwen, try some of these grapes." Wesley's eyes practically welled with tears at this display of sisterly harmony. "See, Gwen, I told you Roxy doesn't hold grudges. She's got a heart of gold. Let's put the past behind us to reward her good behavior." Wesley took her on a massive shopping spree at the luxury mall downtown that afternoon. On the fourth day, Wesley's younger cousin, Cody, returned from his study abroad program in London West. "Check it out, I got you this vintage Dunhill lighter," Cody announced, throwing open a suitcase in the living room. "And Roxy, I got you that signed soccer jersey you wanted." He had gifts for everyone, even a box of Belgian chocolates for a housekeeper. I was the only one left empty-handed. I didn't care in the slightest. I quietly retreated to my room to check my bank account balance. It was far more comforting than any souvenir. But Wesley finally noticed the awkward gap. "Cody, where's Gwen's gift?" Cody scoffed, crossing his arms. "Gwen, please, Roxy is the only sister-in-law I recognize." Grandma Helen, who had just walked through the front door, caught the end of that sentence. She marched over, grabbed Cody by his ear, and gave it a vicious twist. "You little punk, what did you just say?" "Say it again, Grandma Helen." was 75, but she had the voice and grip of an army general. Gwen is the woman Wesley is marrying. She is the future mistress of this house. Who is this Roxy girl, a free-loading hanger-on? Since when does she deserve your respect over Gwen? Free-loading hanger on the words hit Roxy like a physical slap. Her face flushed a deep ugly red. But she didn't dare talk back to the family matriarch. She could only glare at me with pure venom. Cody was wincing in pain. But his teenage stubbornness went out. I dawn. Take care. Roxy takes me go-karting and plays video games with me. She's way cooler, you absolute idiot. Grandma Helen brought her mahogany cane down hard against his backside. You've rotted your brain with those games. You don't even know who your real family is. As Cody yelled in pain, Wesley rushed forward to intervene. Grandma, please, Cody is still young. He doesn't know any better. Don't hurt him. Grandma Helen gave a disdainful snort. She reached into her handbag and pulled out an exquisite, velvet-lined jewelry box, snapping it open in front of everyone. Inside was a breathtaking, flawless golden bangle. Deep green and glowing with history. Gwen, sweetie, I've got your back. Grandma Helen said, sliding the cool gold onto my wrist. This is a family heirloom. It is passed down strictly to the wives of our family. Today it belongs to you. No one else even deserves to look at it. Roxy stared at the bangle, her eyes brimming with tears of jealousy. Wesley, unable to bear her distress, spoke up hesitantly. Grandma, Dawn, do you think we should get something for Roxy too? She spends so much time keeping you company. The heavy oak front door had barely clicked shut behind Grandma Helen's retreating figure when the suffocating silence in our living room shattered. Cody was still nursing his reddened ear, his face twisted in a mixture of adolescent humiliation and sheer resentment. Roxy, meanwhile, stood frozen in the center of the room. Her eyes were glued to my left wrist, where the flawless, deep green jade and gold bangle rested. Under the soft glow of the chandelier, the heirloom seemed to hum with the quiet, undeniable authority of a family's legacy. To a girl like Roxy, who had spent years operating under the delusion that her bro status made her the unofficial matriarch of Wesley's life, that bangle was a physical slap to the face. It was the ultimate boundary line, drawn in solid gold by the most powerful member of the family. Well, Wesley muttered, his voice thick with awkwardness as he tried to break the tension. He rubbed the back of his neck, shifting his weight from foot to
foot.
Grandma sure has a temper when she gets older. Cody, go upstairs and put some ice on your ear. You shouldn't have spoken to Gwen like that. Cody spat on the floor, a dramatic gesture he likely copied from some television show, and stomped upstairs, slamming his bedroom door so hard the framed photos on the hallway wall rattled. With Cody gone, Wesley turned his attention to Roxy. Her lower lip was trembling. A single, perfectly timed tear escaped her left eye, tracing a path down her cheek. Wes, she whispered, her voice cracking with a fragile, breathless quality. I really just a freeloading hanger-on to your family? Is that how everyone sees
me?
I only wanted to make sure you were happy. I didn't know keeping you company made me a villain.
No.
No, of course not, Rox. Wesley panicked instantly, taking a step toward her. He reached out, his hands hovering in the air as if he wanted to hug her, but was suddenly acutely aware of my cold, unblinking presence behind him. Grandma is just traditional. She doesn't understand our bond. You're my sister. You're family to me. But I'm not real family, Roxy sobbed, her eyes darting to my wrist. I don't get heirloom bangles. I don't get respect. I'm just the trashy girl who plays video games and drinks beer, right? Wesley's heart, predictably, bled. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Gwen, look at her. She's devastated. Don't you think you could, I don't know, let her try the bangle on? Just to show her there are no hard feelings? It's just a piece of jewelry, after all. Let's show her we consider her part of the family. I didn't answer right away. I merely raised my left arm, letting the green jade catch the light. Let her try it on? I repeated, my tone devoid of any emotion. Yeah, Wesley said, gaining confidence, thinking he was navigating a delicate, diplomatic situation. Just for a minute. To make her feel included. It would mean the world to her, Gwen.
Please.
Be the bigger person. I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the sharp, calculated grin of a venture capitalist about to close a highly lucrative deal. Sure, I said smoothly, sliding the cool jade off my wrist. She can try it on. But before she touches it, let's establish some basic facts. This bangle is a registered historical heirloom. Grandma Helen had it appraised last year for insurance purposes. Its market value is exactly $500,000. Roxy's eyes widened slightly. So, I continued holding the bangle out. If she wears it and anything, and I mean anything, happens to it, you are her guarantor, Wesley. If it chips, cracks, or mysteriously vanishes, you will pay me $500,000. Immediately. Understood. Wesley choked on his own saliva. 500,000? Gwen, it's just a bracelet. Why do you always have to bring money into everything? Because unlike you, Wesley, I value assets over anecdotes, I replied. Do you agree to the terms, or does Roxy's family status not quite cover $500,000 in liability? Roxy stared at the bangle in my hand. For a split second, a dark, calculating look flashed across her face. She thought she saw an opportunity. If she accidentally dropped it, she could claim it was a clumsy slip, ruin my precious heirloom, and watch me cry. She didn't think Wesley would actually hold her accountable for the money. After all, Wesley always bailed her out. I'll try it on, Roxy said quickly, stepping forward with an eager, almost manic smile. I'll be super careful, Gwen. I promise. I just want to feel what it's like to be cherished. She reached out, her fingers wrapping around the smooth jade. I let go. The moment my fingers released the bangle, Roxy's hand suddenly spasmed. With a theatrical gasp, she let the $500,000 heirloom slip from her grasp, aiming it directly at the hard, unforgiving marble floor tiles. Oh no! It slipped, she shrieked, her voice filled with manufactured terror. But Roxy had underestimated two things: my reflexes and my absolute refusal to lose money. Before the bangle could even descend halfway to the floor, my hand shot out. I caught the jade bangle cleanly in midair, inches from the stone. My movement was so fast, so precise, it looked almost robotic. Roxy's dramatic gasp died in her throat. She stared at my closed fist, her jaw slightly slack. I slowly brought the bangle back up, slipping it securely onto my own wrist, and then reached into my pocket to pull out my phone. What are you doing? Wesley stammered, his face pale from the near heart attack of seeing $500,000 almost shatter. I tapped the screen, turning the volume up. A cheerful, high-pitched tick-tock voice filled the room. Rule number 15 of the Pick Me playbook: the clumsy princess. She will always try to handle your fiance's expensive belongings, designer bags, jewelry, or electronics, and accidentally drop them, claiming she's just so clumsy and tiny-handed, to subconsciously devalue the wife's status and destroy her peace of mind. I paused the video and looked directly at Roxy, whose face was rapidly turning the color of sour milk. You really need to start watching the playlists I send Wesley. Roxy, I said, my voice dripping with pity. The clumsy slip is a rookie move. It's practically introductory level. I expected better from a veteran like you. Gwen, Wesley hissed, though his voice lacked its usual righteous fire. He looked exhausted, caught between the terrifying realization that the video had predicted Roxy's exact action and his desperate need to keep the peace. She didn't do it on purpose. She has low blood sugar sometimes. Her hands shake. I don't care if she has Parkinson's, Wesley, I said, sliding my phone back into my pocket. The point is, she tried it. And since we're on the subject of her little stunts, I pulled out the Pick Me liability agreement from the kitchen drawer, laying it flat on the counter. Wait, what is that for? Wesley asked, his eyes darting to the paper like it was a venomous snake. She didn't break the bangle. You caught it. True. She didn't break the bangle, I agreed. But while she was pretending to drop it, she made a very specific statement. She said, I only wanted to make sure you were happy. I didn't know keeping you company made me a villain. She accused me of vilifying her for simply being your friend. That constitutes a false accusation of emotional abuse and exclusion. I pointed to the second clause of the agreement. Falsely accusing me of something. $20,000. And let's not forget Cody's little outburst earlier, which was clearly coordinated by Roxy's constant whispering in his ear. But I'll be generous and waive Cody's share. For this little display? That's $20,000, Wesley. Gwen, this is extortion, Wesley yelled, his face turning a deep, angry purple. I'm not paying you 20 grand because Roxy dropped a bracelet and felt sad. Then we can call the wedding off right now, I said calmly. And I'll take Grandma Helen's bangle, the $30,000 you've already transferred. and go buy myself a nice condo in Bali. Your choice, sweetie. Is Roxy's theater worth 20 grand? Or is our marriage over? Wesley stared at me. He looked at my cold, unwavering eyes and realized, with a sinking dread, that I was entirely serious. I didn't love him. I didn't care about his feelings, his bro, or his family drama. I was running a highly profitable business venture, and he was the sole investor. With a trembling hand, Wesley pulled out his phone. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. Notification: Wesley has sent you $20,000. Thank you, I said, smiling sweetly as I folded the agreement and tucked it away. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some online shopping to do.
Keep the
noise down, please. Some of us have actual work tomorrow. I turned and walked upstairs, leaving the two of them standing in the dim light of the living room, looking like two ghost story victims who had finally realized the house was actually haunted. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was thick enough to cut with a
knife.
Wesley had left early for his family's real estate firm, likely to beg his father for an advance on his salary, or to figure out how to liquidate some personal stocks. My bank account was growing beautifully, but Wesley's was taking a beating. At this rate, he would be financially ruined before we even reached the altar, which was entirely fine by me.
The sooner he went broke, the
sooner I could exit this farce with a massive financial cushion. I walked down to the kitchen to make myself a matcha latte. As I approached the doorway, I heard hushed, urgent whispering coming from the dining area. We can't just let her get away with this, Cody, Roxy's voice hissed, devoid of the sweet, innocent tone she used around Wesley. She's draining Wes dry. Yesterday, she forced him to pay her $20,000 just because I almost dropped that stupid green bracelet. She's a monster. If she marries him, she'll kick both of us out of his life forever. I hate her, Cody muttered back, his voice thick with teenage angst.
She got
Grandma to hit me with her cane. Grandma has never done that to me before.
It's
all Gwen's fault. She's like a witch. She is a witch, Roxy agreed, her voice dropping lower, dripping with venom. But she's smart. She uses those stupid TikTok videos to brainwash Wesley.
We
need to play her game, but better. We need to make her look so bad, so completely evil, that even Wesley's stupid agreement won't save her. We need to force her to show her true colors.
How?
Cody asked, sounding eager. What do we do? You have that peanut allergy, right? Roxy whispered. The one where you get a rash and your throat swells up if you eat even a tiny bit of peanut oil. Yeah, but it's dangerous, Roxy. I could die. You won't die, you idiot, Roxy snapped gently. We'll have the EpiPen ready. We're going to host a family reconciliation dinner tonight. I'll cook.
I'll
make a special dish for you, and we'll make sure Gwen is the one who serves it.
To you.
I'll sneak some peanut powder into your portion. When you have the reaction, we'll claim Gwen knew about your allergy and did it on purpose because she hates you for what happened with Grandma. Are you sure this will work? Cody sounded hesitant, but the promise of revenge was clearly tempting. It's foolproof, Roxy sneered. Wesley will finally see her as the cold-blooded
psychopath she is.
No man, not even one as whipped as Wesley, will marry a woman who tried to poison his teenage cousin. The wedding will be off, she'll be kicked out, and we can go back to how things used to be. I stood in the shadow of the hallway, holding my empty mug, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. Poisoning the cousin. Truly, the modern pick-me and her enabler companions were a fascinating breed. They were willing to risk actual anaphylactic shock just to win a petty turf
war.
It was almost poetic in its stupidity. I silently backed away, walking back upstairs to my room without making a sound. If they wanted to play a game of high-stakes kitchen chemistry, who was I to deny them the stage? But first, I needed to make some preparations. I unlocked my phone and dialed a number. Hey, Uncle Chen, I said when the call connected. You still run that security and surveillance firm, right? I need a small favor. Can you send one of your texts to my place in the next hour? I need 3 high-definition, cloud-connected pinhole cameras installed in the kitchen and dining area.
Yes.
The ones with night vision and audio recording. I'll pay double your usual rate. By noon, while Roxy and Cody were out grocery shopping for their grand reconciliation dinner, the technician had come and gone. The cameras were perfectly hidden. One disguised as a small screw in the kitchen range hood, another nested in the leaves of a faux potted plant on the sideboard, and the third built into the digital clock on the wall. The live feed was streaming directly to a secure cloud server, accessible via my phone. At 6 p.m., Wesley returned home, looking exhausted but visibly relieved when he saw the dining table beautifully set. Roxy was wearing a frilly pink apron, humming softly as she set down plates of roasted chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and a vibrant green garden salad. "Wow," Wesley said, his eyes lighting up as he walked in. "What's all this?" "A peace offering," Roxy said, looking up with a sweet, timid smile.
She wiped
Her hands on her apron, looking the picture of domestic humility. "I felt so bad about yesterday, Wes. And Cody feels terrible about how he spoke to Gwen.
We
Wanted to make things right. I cooked all of Gwen's favorite foods and Cody even helped me prep the veggies." Wesley looked like he might actually cry tears of joy. He turned to me as I walked down the stairs. "Gwen,
look.
Roxy made dinner for us."
She wanted to.
"Apologize.
See?
I told you, she has a heart of gold." "How lovely," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "I'm touched." Cody sat opposite me, his eyes darting nervously between his plate and Roxy.
He
Looked incredibly tense, his hands shaking slightly as he picked up his fork. "I made a special honey-glazed salmon for Cody," Roxy said, placing a beautifully seared fillet in front of the teenager. "And for you, Gwen, I made the garlic butter shrimp. I hope you like it." "Thank you, Roxy," I said. I didn't touch my food. Instead, I leaned back, watching them. "Come on, Gwen, eat," Wesley encouraged, digging into his chicken. "It's really
good.
Let's put all this drama behind us. We're going to be family soon." "Actually, Wesley," I said smoothly, "I think Cody should eat his salmon first. He looks so hungry." "Go on, Cody. Take a big bite." Cody swallowed hard. He looked at the salmon, then at Roxy. Roxy gave him a subtle, encouraging nod. Cody picked up his fork, cut off a piece of the salmon, and put it in his mouth. I counted silently in my head.
5, 4,
3,
2, 1.
Almost instantly, Cody's face began to flush a deep, unnatural red. He let out a wet, raspy cough, his hand flying to his throat. "Cody," Wesley asked, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. "Are you okay?" Cody didn't answer. He gasped for air, his chest heaving as red, angry hives began to erupt along his jawline and neck. He knocked his water glass over, the liquid spilling across the table as he struggled to breathe. "Oh my God! He's having an allergic reaction," Roxy shrieked, instantly, springing into action. She grabbed an EpiPen from her purse, which was suspiciously already sitting open on the chair next to her, and slammed it into
Cody's thigh.
Cody gasped, his breathing gradually slowing down as the epinephrine began to work, though he was still shaking violently, covered in hives. Cody, talk to me," Wesley yelled, panicking, rushing to his cousins.
Side.
"What happened?
What did you eat?"
Roxy, did you put peanuts in the food?"
No.
"Of course not," Roxy cried, her face twisted in a mask of horror and outrage. She turned her tear-filled eyes directly on me, pointing a trembling finger. It was Gwen. She was in the kitchen earlier. I saw her hovering near the plates while I went to the bathroom. She must have put something in Cody's food. "What?" Wesley gasped, his head snapping toward me. His face was a mixture of disbelief and growing horror. "Gwen, did you? Because of what happened with Grandma? He's just a kid." "Gwen hates us, Wes," Roxy sobbed, wrapping her arms around a shivering Cody. She wanted to get back at Cody for what he said. She tried to kill him. "She's a monster. Look at him. He almost died." Wesley stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The guilt, the stress of the past few days, and the sheer terror of almost losing his cousin boiled over into a wave of righteous fury. "Gwen, how could you?" Wesley roared, his hands fist-clenching at his sides.
"I
tolerated your stupid TikTok videos. I tolerated your ridiculous fines, but
this
is attempted murder. You poisoned a teenager. I don't care about any agreement anymore. We are calling the police. You're going to jail." I sat there, completely unmoved. I didn't flinch, I didn't panic, and I
certainly didn't cry.
Instead, I slowly reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and tapped the screen to open the surveillance app. "Wesley," I said, my voice carrying a bone-chilling calm that instantly cut through his shouting. "Before you call the police and make an absolute fool of yourself, I suggest you take a look at this." I slid the phone across the damp tablecloth, right into the puddle of spilled water. Wesley glared at me, but his eyes automatically drifted down to the screen. On the high-definition video playback, the kitchen was empty. Then the camera angle from the range hood clearly showed Roxy standing over the plates. Cody was standing next to her. Roxy pulled a small plastic bag of brown powder from her apron pocket. On the audio, her voice was crystal clear. "This is peanut powder, Cody.
Just a
Tiny bit. It'll trigger your hives, but the EpiPen will stop it before it gets dangerous. Make sure you look like you're dying. We have to make Wesley believe."
Gwen did it.
The video showed Cody nodding, taking a small pinch of the powder and rubbing it directly onto the salmon before Roxy plated it. The silence that fell over the dining room was heavy, suffocating, and absolute. Wesley's face went from furious red to pale white to a sickly, hollow gray.
He
Stared at the screen as the video looped, playing the incriminating conversation over and over again. Cody whimpered, burying his face in his hands. Roxy's jaw had dropped so low it looked as if it might detach. Her theatrical tears froze on her cheeks, turning into cold, pathetic streaks of sweat. "You," Wesley whispered, his voice trembling as he looked from the phone to Roxy. "You did this? You poisoned Cody to frame Gwen." "Wes, no. It's not what it looks like," Roxy stammered, her voice high and
panicked.
she scrambled backward, trying to find a lie, any lie, to cover her
Tracks.
We wanted to show you how dangerous she is.
We
Knew she wouldn't care if we were hurt. It was a test. A test, Wes. A test. Wesley whispered, the sheer absurdity of the excuse finally piercing through his thick skull. "You almost killed my cousin. You staged a medical emergency in my house. You tried to frame my fiance for a felony. And let's not forget," I chimed in, my voice bright and cheerful as I pulled the pick-me liability agreement out of my purse and laid it next to the phone. Clause number 2. Falsely accusing me of something, $20,000. I looked at Wesley, whose eyes were hollow, empty sockets of pure despair. "That's another 20 grand, Wesley. And since Cody was an active co-conspirator, I think it's only fair we add a family premium. But I'm a reasonable woman. I'll stick to the agreed price. $20,000.
Paid.
Immediately, or I call the police myself with this footage. I'm sure the district attorney would love to see a case of conspiracy to commit public endangerment and filing a false police report." Wesley looked at me, then at Roxy, then at the phone. He looked like a man who had just realizing he had spent years sleeping in a bed of vipers, only to find out the vipers were also terrible actors. Without a single word, Wesley pulled out his phone. "Notification. Wesley has sent you $20,000. "Thank you," I said, standing up and picking up my phone. I hadn't touched a single bite of the dinner, but I had never felt more satisfied. "I think I'll order some takeout. This kitchen is suddenly very unsanitary." As I walked out of the dining room, I heard Wesley finally snap. "Get out," Wesley whispered, his voice shaking with a rage I had never heard from him before. "Both of you, get the hell out of my house." For 3 days, the house was a tomb. Cody had been packed off to his parents' house in disgrace, Grandma Helen having personally come to oversee his departure with her mahogany cane held prominently in her hand. Roxy was nowhere to be seen. She had been banished from our home, her text messages to Wesley going unanswered. Wesley himself was a ghost. He barely spoke, spent his nights staring at the ceiling in the guest room, and worked 14-hour days. His pride was shattered. His bank account was severely depleted. He was now down $50,000 to me, and his understanding of his innocent, pure camaraderie with his female best friend had been thoroughly demolished. Yet I knew this wasn't the end. A pick-me girl like Roxy, who had spent a decade building her identity around being the center of Wesley's universe, would not slip away quietly into the
night.
She was desperate. She had lost her social status, her financial backer, and her reputation. And a desperate predator is the most dangerous kind. On the 4th day, the storm finally arrived. It was a rainy Tuesday evening. Wesley was sitting on the sofa, staring blankly at a muted television screen, when his phone began to ring. It wasn't a standard call. It was an emergency bypass ringtone he had set up years ago for Roxy. Wesley hesitated, his hand trembling as he reached for the phone. He answered it. On the 3rd ring, putting it on speaker, a habit he had developed since my surveillance cameras had made him paranoid. "Wes." Roxy's voice didn't sound angry or manipulative. It sounded weak, distant, and wet with blood. There was a sickening, metallic coughing sound in the background, followed by the shrill, frantic blare of sirens. Roxy. Wesley sat up, his protective instincts instantly fighting through his anger. Roxy, what's going on? Where are you?
I
messed up, Wes, she whispered, her voice cracking. I was driving. Was so distracted, thinking about how much I hurt you, and I didn't see the truck.
I'm sorry, Wes.
I'm so sorry. The call cut out with a harsh, static screech. Wesley stood up, so fast he knocked the coffee table forward. Roxy, he screamed into the dead phone. Within minutes, his phone buzzed with a text from Cody, who was apparently still in contact with Roxy's mother. Cody, Wes. Roxy's been in a massive car crash on Route 9. She's at St. Jude's Memorial Car. It's bad, Wes. Really bad. They're saying she has internal bleeding, and her kidneys are failing. Wesley turned to me, his eyes wide with a frantic, animalistic terror.
Gwen, we
have to go.
Please.
I know she did terrible things, but she's dying. I can't let her die. I looked at him, my expression perfectly flat. Of course, I said smoothly. Let's go to the hospital. I didn't care about Roxy's health, but I knew exactly what was coming. This was the grand finale. This was the final, desperate play in the Pick Me playbook. And I had been waiting for this moment since the day I drafted the agreement. The hospital corridors of St. Jude's Memorial were sterile, bright, and filled with the tense energy of a medical emergency. When we arrived, Cody and Roxy's mother, a gaunt, dramatic woman named Brenda, were already there, weeping loudly. In the waiting room, the moment Brenda saw Wesley, she rushed forward, grabbing his coat. Wesley. Oh, thank God you're here, she wailed. My baby, my poor Roxy.
The
doctors say she has severe abdominal trauma. Her left kidney was crushed in the impact, and her right kidney is failing from shock. She needs an immediate transplant to stabilize her, and she has a rare blood type. They don't have any matching organs in the local registry. Wesley's face drained of color. He looked like he was about to faint.
A rare
blood type? What type? Rh-null, Brenda sobbed. The golden blood. It's so rare, only a handful of people in the state have it. If she doesn't get a transplant or a massive, compatible transfusion in the next few hours, her organs will shut down. Completely. Wesley froze. Slowly, almost mechanically, his head turned toward me. I stood there, leaning against the vending machine, sipping a carton of coconut water. I, too, had Rh-null blood. It was a rare genetic quirk we had discovered during a routine company physical a year ago. Wesley knew this. Roxy knew this. Everyone in their circle knew this. Gwen, Wesley whispered, his voice cracking with a desperate, pathetic hope. He took a step toward me, his hand shaking. Gwen, please. You have the blood. You're a match. You could donate a kidney. You can live with one
kidney, right?
The doctors can do the surgery tonight.
Please, Gwen.
Save her
life.
I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever you want. Brenda and Cody both turned to look at me, their eyes filled with a sudden, sharp intensity.
Yes.
Please, Gwen. Brenda begged, dropping to her knees in front of me, clutching at my jeans. Save my daughter. I know she's been difficult, but she's just a child. You can't let her die when you have the power to save her. I looked down at Brenda, then at Wesley. Wesley, I said, my voice cool and echoing in the quiet hallway. Do you remember the final clause of our Pick Me liability agreement? Wesley's eyes widened in horror. He had forgotten. In his panic, he had completely forgotten. Let me remind you, I said, pulling a folded, laminated copy of the agreement from my bag. I always kept it on me. Clause number 3. If she ever pulls some dramatic stunt that results in me being pressured to donate blood or organs to her, you sign over the deed of our new house to me entirely. Gwen, Wesley gasped, his voice filled with utter disbelief.
This is a
life or death situation. Roxy is dying in that room, and you're negotiating over a house? Are you a human being or a monster? I am a woman of my word, Wesley, I replied, my voice steady and unyielding. Your family bought that luxury villa downtown for $2.5 million as our wedding gift. The deed is currently in your name.
If you want me
to even consider stepping into that donor clinic, you will call your lawyer right now and sign the deed over to me.
Completely.
No strings attached. You're sick, Cody yelled, stepping forward, his face red with anger.
You're a psycho.
She's dying, and you want our house. Then let her die, I said simply, taking another sip of my coconut water.
The
Choice is yours, Wesley. The deed or her life. You have 10 minutes before I walk out of this hospital and block both of your numbers. Wesley stared at me, his chest heaving. He looked at Brenda, who was sobbing hysterically, and then at the closed doors of the intensive care unit. The pressure was immense. He was a man who had been raised to believe in duty, chivalry, and his own heroic status as Roxy's protector. He couldn't let her. He couldn't bear the guilt. Fine, Wesley screamed, his voice breaking. He pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen as he dialed his family's private attorney. I'll do it. I'll transfer the deed. Just save her, Gwen. Please. To Wesley's credit, his family's attorney was incredibly efficient, even at 9 o'clock on a rainy Tuesday night. Given the wealth and influence of the family, they kept a mobile notary on retainer. Within 45 minutes, a sleek, middle-aged man in a sharp gray suit arrived at the hospital waiting room, carrying a leather-bound briefcase. Wesley's hands were shaking so violently he could barely hold the pen. Mr. Wesley, the attorney, Mr. Vance, said quietly, looking highly uncomfortable with the setting. Are you absolutely certain about this? This is a voluntary, irrevocable transfer of the deed for the Northwood Villa. Once you sign this, the property belongs entirely to Ms. Gwen, regardless of whether your marriage takes place or not. I know, Wesley yelled, his voice hoarse. He snatched the pen from Mr. Vance's hand. Just give me the paper. I don't care about the house anymore. I just want to end this nightmare. With a jagged, desperate stroke, Wesley signed his name at the bottom of the transfer deed. The notary stamped the document with a heavy, satisfying clack. It is done, Mr. Vance said, handing the copy to me. The transfer is legally binding and has been registered in our firm's digital database. The physical deed will be mailed to Ms. Gwen's address within 48 hours. I took the document, carefully scanning every line to ensure there were no hidden loopholes. Once I was satisfied, I folded it neatly and slid it into my designer bag. $2.5 million. Plus the $50,000 in cash I had already accumulated. I had officially made more money in a single week of dealing with a pick-me girl than most people made in a decade of hard labor. There, Wesley shouted, turning to me, his face wild and tear-stained. I signed it. The house is yours. Now go. Go talk to the doctor. Save Roxy. Of course, I said, my voice calm, almost serene. A deal is a deal. I stood up, smoothed down my skirt, and walked toward the double doors of the intensive care unit. Wesley, Brenda, and Cody followed close behind, their faces filled with a desperate, tense anticipation. Just as we reached the doors, they swung open, and a middle-aged doctor in green scrubs stepped out. He looked tired, his brow furrowed as he looked at the medical chart in his hands. Are you the family of Roxy Miller? The doctor asked. Yes. Yes, I'm her mother, Brenda cried, rushing forward. Doctor, is she okay? Have you prepared the donor match? This is Gwen. She has the Rh null blood. She's ready to donate. The doctor blinked, looking completely bewildered. He looked from Brenda to Wesley and then to me. Donor? The doctor repeated. What are you talking about? Her kidney, Wesley stammered. And the blood transfusion. She needs an immediate transplant, right? Her kidneys are failing. The doctor let out a long, heavy sigh, rubbing his temples. I don't know who gave you this information, the doctor said, his tone flat and dry. But Ms. Miller's kidneys are perfectly fine. She has some mild bruising on her ribs and a small laceration on her forehead from the airbag deployment. Her vitals are completely stable. The hallway fell into a silence, so profound you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Wesley's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Brenda's sobbing instantly froze, her face turning a strange, guilty shade of pink. What? Wesley finally managed to choke out. But Cody said, the text said she was in critical condition. Internal bleeding. Kidney failure. Ms. Miller was brought in after a low-speed collision, the doctor explained, sounding increasingly annoyed. She was conscious, coherent, and her blood pressure was normal. We ran a routine scan, and there is absolutely no internal bleeding. In fact, we were about to discharge her. She's currently sitting in room 402, eating a cup of strawberry jello. I turned my head slowly to look at Cody. The teenager was trying to shrink into the wall, his eyes darting frantically toward the exit. Cody, I said softly, my voice like ice. Would you care to explain why you sent Wesley that text?
I.
Cody stammered, his voice cracking. Roxy told me to. She called me from the ambulance and she said if we made it sound like she was dying, Wesley would forget about the dinner incident and come back to her.
She said we
had to make it dramatic. And you, Brenda? I turned my gaze to Roxy's mother, who was suddenly very interested in the pattern of the linoleum floor. You dropped to your knees. You
wept.
You claimed she needed my kidney. Were you in on this little theatrical production as well? I only wanted what's best for my daughter, Brenda mumbled, backing away. She was so upset. She said Wesley was her only hope. Wesley stood in the middle of the corridor, looking like a man who had just been hit by a freight train. The sheer weight of the deception, the calculated, monstrous lie designed to exploit his deepest fears and guilt, finally crushed his remaining sanity. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He slowly walked past the doctor, pushing open the door to room 402. We followed him. Inside the room, Roxy was sitting upright on the hospital bed. She was indeed eating strawberry jello, her legs crossed comfortably. She had a small band-aid on her forehead, but otherwise, she looked healthier than I did. When the door opened and she saw Wesley's pale, empty face, her eyes lit up.
She
quickly dropped the spoon, letting her head fall back against the pillow as she let out a weak, pathetic groan. Wes, she whispered, her voice instantly reverting to that fragile, breathless pitch. You came. I was so scared. I thought I'd never see you again. Wesley walked over to the side of the bed. He stared down at her for a long, quiet moment. You're eating jello, Wesley said, his voice entirely devoid of life. I had to keep my strength up, Wes, Roxy stammered, her eyes shifting nervously as she saw me and the doctor entering behind him. The internal bleeding, it's so painful. The doctor says you have a bruised rib, Roxy, Wesley said. And a scratch on your forehead. You don't have kidney failure. You don't need a transplant. You don't even need a band-aid, really. Roxy's act began to crumble. She looked at her mother, then at Cody, realizing the game was up. Wes, please. I was just so desperate, she cried, reaching out to grab his hand. I knew you were mad at me. I thought if you saw how close you came to losing me, you'd realize how much I mean to you. We're brothers.
Wes, pure camaraderie.
You can't just throw away 10 years of friendship over a few mistakes. Wesley slowly pulled his hand away from her grip. It was the first time in his life he had ever rejected her touch. 10 years, Wesley whispered. 10 years of me defending you. 10 years of me letting you insult my partners, ruin my relationships, and treat my life like your personal playground. I paid $50,000 to Gwen because of your stunts. And tonight I signed over my family's $2.5 million house because I thought you were dying. Roxy gasped, her eyes widening as she looked at me. You signed the house. Over? Yes, I said, stepping forward with a bright, victorious smile. The deed is officially mine, Roxy. Thank you so much for your cooperation. I couldn't have bought a luxury villa like that on my own salary anytime soon. Your pick-me stunts have been incredibly lucrative for my personal portfolio. Gwen, you'd be asterisk to th. Roxy shrieked, her sweet, fragile persona completely evaporating. She sat up in bed, pointing a finger at me, her face contorted in pure, ugly rage. You planned this. You extorted him. I didn't plan anything, Roxy, I replied smoothly. I simply set the boundaries. You and Wesley were the ones who kept crossing them. Every single dollar I earned was a direct result of your toxic behavior. If you had just been a normal, respectful friend, Wesley would still have his money, his house, and his fiance. But you just couldn't help yourself, could you? I turned to Wesley, who was staring at the floor, looking like a hollow shell of a man. Our engagement is officially over, Wesley, I said, sliding the engagement ring off my finger and tossing it onto the hospital tray next to Roxy's half-eaten jello. Keep the ring. I already have the $50,000, the $2.5 million house, and Grandma Helen's jade bangle. I think that's a more than fair settlement for my wasted time. Gwen, Wesley whispered, looking up at me with eyes full of a desperate, pathetic regret. Please don't leave me. I was stupid. I see it now. I'll cut her off. I'll never speak to her again. Just please give me another chance. I'm sorry, Wesley, I said, not feeling a single ounce of pity. But I don't marry spineless men who need a $50,000 lesson and a lost house to realize their bro is a snake. You deserve exactly what you have left each other. I turned on my heel and walked out of the hospital room, the sharp, confident click of my heels echoing down the corridor. 3 months later, the afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my brand-new luxury villa in the hills. The house was breathtaking. It had a private infinity pool overlooking the city, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and a master bedroom that felt like a 5-star resort. I had furnished it entirely with the $50,000 I had won from Wesley's pick-me finds. I sat on the plush outdoor lounge, sipping a glass of expensive champagne, Grandma Helen's jade and gold bangle gleaming beautifully on my wrist. Grandma Helen had been furious when she first found out about the canceled wedding, but once I showed her the complete surveillance footage and the hospital reports, her fury had turned entirely on her own grandson.
In a
brilliant twist of irony, she had legally blocked Wesley from accessing any of his future inheritance and had officially declared me her favorite granddaughter-in-law that never was, letting me keep the heirloom bangle as a personal gift of apology from the family. My phone buzzed on the table. It was an email from my real estate lawyer, confirming that the last of the paperwork had been processed. The villa was 100% mine, completely free and clear of any claims. I opened my social media app, scrolling through my feed. A local gossip page popped up, and I couldn't help but chuckle at the latest update on my favorite brothers. After I left, Wesley's family had completely stripped him of his position at the firm. He was currently working a low-paying job as a junior property manager, living in a cramped, damp 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. And the cherry on top? Roxy had moved in with him. With no money, no luxury shopping sprees, and no grand house to play princess. Their pure camaraderie had quickly turned into a toxic, daily screaming
match.
According to mutual acquaintances, they fought constantly about money, dishes, and their ruined reputations. Roxy's crass, beer-drinking, video game-playing persona was no longer cute when they were actually broke and forced to live together. She was no longer his cool bro, she was just a miserable, freeloading roommate he couldn't get rid of because of his lingering, pathetic guilt. They had wanted to be together so badly. Now, they were trapped in their own personal hell, bound by the very boundaries they had refused to respect. I took a slow sip of my champagne, letting the cool, bubbly liquid wash over my
tongue.
The universe indeed loves a good irony. But more than that, it loves a woman who knows exactly how to turn a toxic situation into a multi-million-dollar investment.